Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Holistic Healing Space podcast. My name is Holly and I'm your host. And today I've got a really special episode. It actually means a lot to me. I am chatting with my sister-in-law, Claire Uhlich, who is a really amazing woman. She's an author, a transformational yoga instructor, and a holistic counsellor. And in this very raw and deep episode, we discuss the messy process of trauma healing, shadow work, emotional processing, and transformation as we let go of who we thought we were to embrace the magic of who we came here to be. There's lots of juicy info in here for anybody on their healing journey, and we hope you enjoy it and that you benefit from our chat. So welcome, Claire. I'm super excited to have you on the podcast today. You're not only my sister-in-law, but there's so many amazing things about you and what you're doing and what you've been through and the book that you've written, Women Transforming, which I'm really excited to talk about that today as well.
Thanks, Holly. It's amazing to be on your show because there's so many things that I wish we could record between our conversations and share.
Me too.
Yeah, every time we have one of our deep turbo healing conversations, I just wish it was something we could share with the world. Yeah, I guess we really meet on that level of healing. And
yeah, for sure.
So if I was to introduce myself, it just depends on who I am today.
I hear.
Yeah, so basically I've got an intention, and I felt like growing up my needs weren't met in the way of transparent communication and people experiencing heavy emotions like that, like feeling their emotions and then projecting them onto the world. I had this thing when I was a child, I could sort of feel the emotions. So I used to say, or sometimes say, I would see people's emotions before I would see their face. And
love that.
Yeah, so what I felt growing up was like I would feel what was going on for someone, but then be met with a very smiley face, and it just didn't feel right. And, you know, I identified passive aggressive behavior very early on. I think that family members of mine, I won't say who, but I felt there was a lot of depression in my family, anxiety, and it was all covered up. And for me, that was the most detrimental thing because I felt it anyway. So
yeah,
I think from that pain, I always believe that your pain is your purpose in life. And from the pain of being denied access to the knowledge of people's emotions, I've created a life now where I commit to knowing heavy emotions, to communicating about them openly when I know about them. And just getting that out in the world, that life's not just a big, pretty rainbow. It's, you know, there's hard things to get through and emotions are heavy. And I don't believe that I feel like if you don't know your darkness, you can't know your light.
100% agree with you, and I love everything you just said, and it couldn't be closer to the truth. And I guess with your book too, you talk a lot about that unraveling and delayering of conditioning and the emotional journey and things like that, don't you? It's very deep, your book.
It is very deep, and sometimes I look at people's faces after they've read it, and it's just like they're a little shocked.
But I think that's great because we need to get triggered into our healing sometimes. You know, in a way, your book is really awakening people to looking deeper within themselves. That's kind of how I see it, but to a level with so much more.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's a scary thing. I mean, it's not an easy process, is it? Like going deep within yourself and unraveling. And like you just said, a lot of us aren't actually taught how to do that. We haven't been given the tools to navigate how we're feeling on the inside.
I think the only tool a lot of us in our generation, I know this is I often speak in massive generalizations, but I feel like there is a bit of a theme in our generation, like yours and mine, that we learnt from our parents. Yeah. And just like to preface what I'm about to say, like I feel like our parents came off the back of the war, you know, their parents were in survival mode. Everything was about building up big families, image, making yourself look good, finding a way to fit into society again. Life was industrialized. There was a purpose, and the purpose was to survive. But for us, we've been born into that, but screaming for more. So I remember when I was young just going, this can't be all there is to life. 9 to 5 jobs, survival. Like this cannot be all there is to life. And I think being born with that inner questioning so strong in a lot of us, we have two choices. We can either embrace that calling and dig for more, or we can numb. And yeah, a lot of us have been taught to numb by our parents, and that's what we choose over looking at our stuff.
So true. I love that you said we have been taught to numb. It is a choice, and it's not an easy choice to make, though, is it? Now I'm generalizing, but when you look around and the world does tend to, numb, and where that trauma that we've been born into, I mean, it's such a deep trauma to excavate. And when the world normalizes just numbing pain, and when you said purpose to pain, I'm such a believer in that too. And understanding that the pain is there to be looked at, and the fact that you've been doing that deep work to really excavate that and understand the meaning, and when you said about your light, you really can't find it without delving into the darkness. And we're afraid of that. We've been conditioned to be afraid of feeling. And I know you talk about this a lot on, social media and in your book about how important feeling is. And I think that's where we really connect to, on that level of understanding the importance of feeling things, the good and the bad and the ugly. And
feeling it all. And I think that's one of the things, like I speak to a female audience, and I don't mean to do that. The only reason I do that is because I understand what it's like to be a woman in our culture. But I do mean for these words to get out to everyone. But basically, there's a power struggle between men and women still in our culture and things like that. So my book was predominantly meant for women who are trying to become whole again. And that's my intention, was like, you can't be whole unless you understand about all your missing pieces. And the missing pieces are just fragments of you, floating around in the universe. And unless you go and reclaim them, whether it be from a past life, whether it be from a bad experience, a trauma, a wound, someone taking your power off you, whether you go back to those times and reclaim all that, or you just go on with life and keep numbing, that's your choice. But my intention in this life and my purpose, and I feel like you and I are so aligned in this, Holly, is to bring that truth forward.
100%, Claire. I love it. And it is a choice, you're right. And it's not an easy choice to make. I mean, myself personally and you, and I just wanted to touch on the fact that I was not sure if you would agree with, but I was lucky to share a house with you guys on Phillip Island for the first year of lockdown. And I know you're laughing like now. I just wanted to say that that was actually a really profound year for me, because you actually observing your emotional unpacking, and I was unpacking a lot of trauma too. It actually really helped normalize for me the process, because for a long time I felt quite alone on the journey, because the people that are around me were not understanding of what I was unpacking and not going deep. And that's just because I'd surrounded myself with people who chose to numb. And I decided to make that choice personally to unnumb myself, because I actually couldn't function. I felt like a robot. I felt like there was so much stuck in me that wanted to come out, and it was really ugly. And I think when you start to unpack it, as you know, and I know you're going to say some things here too, when you unpack it, it actually feels like you feel like you're crazy. You feel like you're losing. Well, this is me. I felt like I was losing my shit. Well, what is all this stuff? What am I feeling? Do I need medication? Do I need to be locked up? But basically, the more and more you unravel it, the lighter you feel, and you understand the purging is so necessary. So I just wanted to, I've never said this to you, but thank you for actually helping me normalize that process of unpacking stuff and knowing that it's actually okay.
Well, I feel exactly the same way. I think I had a similar experience where, I could talk to you as well. Like, I'd come out of the bedroom in my dressing gown and you just get it,
I remember there was every day we're like, how are you today? How are you going today? You okay? One day we'd cry, the next day we'd be in bed. And, I think COVID in one way that was a kind of a blessing in my eyes, to have that space to just unpack and really go in. And it's, messy, but.
It's funny, just going on from that, what you just said about COVID, like the lockdown, we heard of a lot of suicides at that time. We heard of a lot of people really going crazy and losing composure and losing balance, and people's lives were ripped out from underneath them. So they didn't have, like their normal numbing techniques, or they didn't have their normal, survival tactics. People were left on their own. We were completely abandoned. And then we were locked down in our house with our own company. And if you didn't know yourself, you sure would have known yourself after COVID, because that lockdown, it took everything away from people. There was no more nightclubs to go and, get drunk and lose yourself. There was no more, go to a friend's house and do this. It was all like back on yourself. And for me, and like you said, that was the biggest blessing.
Yeah.
But, it was hard. So I could understand why people took their lives, because when you're sitting in your own space, in your own silence, everything comes up.
100%. That's so true. Everything being taken away from us. And I mean, I'm not going to sit here and lie. And I know with your book and what I've been through, we know quite a bit about each other. Not everything, but what I know and your journey and mine. I mean, I know what it's like to numb yourself and not want to face your pain. And when you've done that for quite a long time, it's like, it's scary. I understand why people numb. I get it. But I think, like you and I have talked about, it's actually really normalizing the fact that feeling your pain has so much power, and you actually find this strength that you never realized you had.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I didn't mean to sort of like cast aspersions on everyone that they don't know how to look at their stuff. Yeah, really difficult thing, because sitting in your pain takes so much courage and so much bravery. And it also, it takes a lot of strength to go against what we're taught and to look outside for something external to soothe you. And I still do it every day. Like I see myself scrolling on Instagram and I'm like, oh, for fuck's sake, Claire, what are you running from? What are you running from this time?
100%.
Yeah, it's not about not numbing for me. Like, I don't know about you, but like it's more about using techniques like when I see myself scrolling, that's a landmark that I'm running from something. So, building a tool pack so that I know when I'm running away from something. I know when something's been subtly triggered within me, and identifying it through my behavior in the external world.
100%. I love that you said that, because awareness is key, isn't it? And I'm the same. I do the same thing. I'm like, oh, why am I looking at social media, or why am I doing this activity that's really not, it's so easy to distract yourself from it. And and like you said, we've normalized it in society. It's so normal to just like, oh, I'm bored, I'm going to do this, or, oh, I don't want to feel this. And I guess, like you said, and we know forgiveness is key, isn't it? Forgiving ourselves for what we're doing and how we've been taught. But I'd love to know, I already know a bit about your tool pack, but I mean, it'd be great, I think, for you to share with others there's so many different tools, but everyone's different, right? But what tools do you kind of turn to?
Yeah, it's sort of a collation of things that I've developed or have popped in my tool pack over the years. I think the biggest one for me is obviously journaling. Everyone has access to journaling, and I feel like it's such a great thing, but there's so many things. I use yoga as well. So like if I'm feeling really stuck, like I can feel something in my body, I can't identify it through words, the best thing to do is move. So, yoga poses are designed to release tension in the body. Tension in the body to me is just trauma. So by releasing that tension, I'm releasing the trauma. And usually I end up like rolling around on my yoga mat crying, and then I'll grab my journal and then I'll start.
Not laughing, sorry. I do the same. Sorry. Yeah.
It's true. It's
that's
funny.
Why I'm laughing. Like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's it. That my kids have to watch all the time. But yeah, and then as soon as I release it, it's amazing. But I use a combination, and I think the thing is intuition, using your intuition. What do I need right now? Do I need to move?
Yes.
Do I need to sing? Do I need to dance? Do I need to do yoga? Do I need to put pen to paper? Do I need to go for a walk and just sit in nature and get my bottom on the ground and my feet in the earth? Like, what do I need?
I love that. You're so right. And that's a big part of, self-love, isn't it? Just what do I need right now? How can I get through it? And I think, your tools are amazing, and you're an amazing writer, and that's a real strength for you. But yeah, with yoga, I guess we're similar, understanding that, that tension is trauma. And interesting that you said that, because that happens to me a lot, the not knowing how I'm feeling, just feeling in my body that something wants to come out. And honestly, it still scares me sometimes. I still have days like, what the fuck am I feeling? All right, what do I do? And for me, it's yoga or dance or meditation. They're kind of my tools, or, nature, similar to you, just really listening in, or just crying or screaming and being okay with like letting it out in whichever way it wants to come. But when I feel like a lot of people, I don't know if you agree or not, but I feel like a lot of people might go through that feeling of not knowing what they're feeling, and that's where numbing is a very easy thing. And that's what I used to do. Like, oh, what is this? I'll just, numb it. But actually sitting with it and going, what can I do in a healthy way to release it? And usually, sometimes you don't even know what it is. It just comes out, or usually there's a message. But trusting the process, isn't it? Of just letting that emotion or feeling just come up and out. Just let it pass.
Yeah, because it's us, isn't it, really, that's holding on to it. And you're holding on to it by, if you choose to numb, that's holding on to it. That's choosing to not let it pass through you. So, that's what I mean by, like, every moment there's that choice. Like, if you feel something in your body, do I make an inquiry into that feeling, or do I go and do regular things like go and try and smash it out in some other way by drinking, a 6-pack of beers or something, or attending to an addiction or something like that. And I don't know, I'm not obviously not an addiction expert, so I don't want to go there, but like choosing to identify or make that inquiry, that's where it starts. It's like I feel discomfort. I feel discomfort in my body. I'm fighting with my partner all the time. My kids are triggering the crap out of me. What is going on? And just choosing to make that inquiry instead of blaming everyone around you. That's, I think, where it starts.
So true, because you really can't blame anyone, and that's a really hard pill to swallow when you start this journey, I think. And I think like normalizing seeking help if you're starting this journey is really another thing, like seeking help, sometimes if you don't know where to start, it's really important to know that you can talk to people who actually can go deep with you. And I think you and I have both had experiences in, maybe not now, but in the past, of seeking help and realizing that people don't go deep enough. A lot of people, maybe I shouldn't say this, I'm generalizing, but I feel as a past social worker, now doing my own thing, I actually feel like we don't go deep enough in mainstream a lot of mainstream therapies. A lot of people do, and there's a lot of beautiful, amazing souls coming out to really understand the purging and releasing process. And I honestly, I'm just going to name it, I hate hearing doctors who just, I've heard so many stories lately of people going to see a doctor and saying, oh, you must be depressed. Let's just put you on this meditation. Meditation. That's probably a good thing. Medication. I wish they said meditation. That was an interesting slip. Medication first. And I've actually had people say, but I actually wanted to see a counsellor, but they said medication first. And I actually think that's appalling. That's taking away people's choice. But anyway, I think that everyone has the choice to make, but numbing is not getting to the root cause of, and like you said, I feel if we continue to numb, we do kind of tend to remain stagnant in that emotional energy because we have held on to that old energy,
Well, it's interesting too, like I'll just lightly touch on this because I know it's a really sensitive topic, but just myself and the experience that I had with antidepressants, it completely numbed my entire experience with emotion. I couldn't feel happiness. I couldn't feel sadness. I couldn't feel anything. And being an emotional being like I am, emotions are my life. So when I was on them, it was a really tough experience for me. I wasn't, like I was going to say I wasn't happy, but then I wasn't unhappy either. It put me in a place where I didn't have the choice to work through the emotions because I couldn't access anything. I was just literally numb from the top of my head all the way to the bottom of my feet. And I remember trying to cry. I remember like making up things in my head, trying to get myself to cry. And I couldn't even squeeze a tear out. It was so bizarre. It was just and I was literally a robot. So I was happy that I went through that experience because it made me realize how important emotions are and how they can enrich your life if you can understand them. I felt like that was important to say. I know it's a sensitive topic, and I know there are definitely people who cannot get a handle on their emotions for whatever reason, and for their own safety and the safety of their lives and whatever else, or other people's lives, maybe that's important in that scenario. But my experience is that I can't live without emotions. I just can't.
I hear you, and I think that's a really profound message, and I have no doubt that a lot of people could relate to that of feeling numb from head to toe. And it actually really saddens me, to be honest, that so many people do disconnect from their emotions. And like you said, and as we both know, it is actually really intense to feel them, and it does take a lot of courage and strength to delve deep and excavate them. And I remember there was a year there, actually, no, I'd say more than a year. There was times where I was, really thinking, I don't want to be here anymore. What's the point? This is too hard. Like, I understand people get to that low point of actually, not being able to cope, because if you're carrying trauma, you've got, we've talked a bit about this too, like the ancestral patterns, we've inherited some patterns from our parents who they haven't actually delved into it. And then we've got our own trauma, and then there's conditioning from society on top of that, and you're a sensitive soul. It can actually be a lot to unravel. It's a fucking shitload of stuff, and it can actually be, and I think before this podcast we talked about, maybe we'll touch on this later, about really knowing who you are and authenticity. And it's a real struggle to actually know who you are buried beneath all this stuff. But the emotional journey to me is such an important journey to be on, so you actually get closer to who you are at that soul level.
It's a strange thing, isn't it? Because to be happier in yourself and to know yourself and to feel whole and to feel the magic of life, you have to go through the darkness. I don't believe with all my heart and soul. I don't believe, and I know you can never be definitive about anything in life, but this I am. I don't believe you can know yourself without knowing your darkness. They exist in conjunction with each other. It's important to remember that and to find power in that.
100%. And I think that positive affirmations and mirror work and doing all the things to bring in the good energy is really, really important, because we need to keep battling our demons, or whatever you want to call them, the weaknesses or whatever, our trauma. But to me, in my experience, I always have to sift through that darkness to actually bring in that light. I can't just put in all these affirmations. It just doesn't, it's not lasting. The purging always comes. And I think you spoke about this on one of your social media posts about manifesting, and I've got a very similar perception of that with you, and how we nearly have to feel. And when we manifest things, coming from that space of our highest pure self or whatever, not the ego and our conditioning, but feeling. And when we manifest, you spoke about it, it's like we have to feel, and all our shit will come up. It's like, all of our blocks and I can't do this, I'm not good enough, blah, blah, blah. That's actually part of getting to where we want to be, though. That's showing us, isn't it? Like our stagnant energy. And
that is so true. I love that you just said that, because I wanted to elaborate more on that.
I think you said it in your post too. So
but I didn't. I don't think I delved deep enough into that. You know me, I love a deep conversation. I don't think I delved deep into that part where, I really feel like when that trauma comes up, when that resistance comes up, 99% of people will go, oh, okay, no, that's too hard. I'm on the wrong path, because they believe manifesting is easy, drop in your lap, then, visualize it, and then it arrives in the letterbox. It just doesn't happen. But I've seen, we don't even have to actively reach out for what we want. All we have to do is sit still in the present moment. And what does the universe need from me right now to get to that vision? And then if the universe drops in resistance, if the universe drops in self-worth shit, if the universe drops in, discomfort and whatever, that's what you need to heal to move to that next stage to get you closer to your vision. And I think that
I love that.
Yeah, I think that people get to that stage where they're like, oh, yeah, no, I'm just hitting roadblock after roadblock. This isn't what's meant for me. I'll go for something else. And they try to cultivate another vision or another way to get there. But there's no getting around it.
Yep.
If you want what you want, you need to vibrate at that frequency. And to vibrate at that frequency, you need to change the energy in your body to vibrate at the same frequency as what you want.
It's so true. It's really an internal thing. And I love that you said just sit with it, because I in the past have run towards things, and I think that there's actually quite a few people in the spiritual community, not just me, who think just go and do it. Just do it. Just almost bypass all of that and just get to from A to Z. Just go, and the universe will have your back, and I think to a level that works. But if you haven't done the little steps in between, to me, the things that have manifested which have been amazing, and been when I actually did what you did, just sat, gone through the pain, and then it just comes. The next step is presented. We don't actually have to chase anything or push too much. Like you said too, that we have to take action, but the universe almost delivers it to you when you do the internal work, when you take those steps, of that discomfort and work through it. And it can be really difficult when it feels really uncomfortable, because you kind of almost, your internal or like your demons or your darkness can actually go, oh, that's too hard. Oh no, I'm not going to do that. And I think you and I have talked a lot about self-sabotage and how easy it is to fall back into patterns of not even realizing it is self-sabotage. There's sometimes that I've not even realized I've sabotaged stuff. Like, oh shit, that was actually probably, a good step for me to take, but I just sabotaged it, not realizing my patterns were so deep.
Yeah, because your ego would like you to believe that you're perfect, and my ego says to me all the time, oh, we don't need to go there today because we've done enough inner work, so you're healed, and now you can have everything you want. And then I know that's not true. I'd like to believe that. But just on that, when I just wanted to give an example about Inda, your niece, and my daughter, about how she went going to school for the first time, like a brand new school. And nobody knows this about Inda, but ever since she was little, she's been terrified of going to school. And we finally got her into a school when she was in prep, and then she had lots of anxiety about going, and it kind of was, then she became really comfortable at that school, and she's like, right, this is my comfort zone. I love my comfort zone. Don't ever take me out of my comfort zone. And then when we moved away, obviously we knew we were going to have to. And I feel Inda's anxiety so much that I don't want her to feel it. And sometimes I jump in and try and cushion it for her, which isn't the best thing, because when we moved up here, she had a go at going to school, and it was the hardest thing for her. She knew nobody. She was so anxious, and I was so tempted to keep jumping in and just going, it's okay, just here, have this food, and I'll give you an ice cream. And I felt so tempted to bribe and to comfort. And then I thought, I'm doing that thing that I'm so against, and I'm teaching her not to be okay with discomfort. I'm telling her that discomfort is bad, and that you can't do it without ice cream. And I'm doing all those things. So what I need to do is shut the fuck up and just witness and be there for her. That's all I have to do. Yeah. And she went to school, and after that day of her going to school, she came home and was a different child. I saw her break past that point of resistance she's never been past in her entire life.
Wow.
It was the comfort zone threshold. She'd never been past that. So every time she got to the threshold, she'd pull back and just go, no, I don't like that. Yeah. That's uncomfortable. But with our support, we pushed her past that. And she is a different kid. She's in the water surfing, sitting out the back with all the big surfers, when she would never have done that in Victoria. She's speaking confidently. Her posture's changed. She's standing a lot taller. She's so confident in herself now. And that was the biggest mirror lesson for me that I have ever experienced in my life, because I was like, Claire, this is where you need to practice what you preach and teach your kids these tools. And that's her tool for life now. She knows what's on the other side of the threshold, and it's not going to kill her. But a lot of people don't ever get past that threshold to know that you're not going to die, if you push past that resistance a bit.
Yeah, that's such a beautiful story, and so powerful for parents too, because it must be so easy to want to jump in and protect. And that's so, like, with all the work you've done, and be able to actually give that to your daughter. And I know Inda's such a sensitive soul and a beautiful soul, both Inda and Marley are. But I love how you said that about the other side of the threshold. And it's crazy, how we can stop ourselves from pushing past that, because fear does seem really real. Like, it actually does feel in our body like it actually is going to kill us. It feels really dangerous.
Yeah. And like you said, with ego deaths, that's an ego death. So that belief system is then null and void once you push past it, and that part of your ego dies.
I think we touched on that this morning, the ego deaths. And like, it's actually, how would you describe it? I mean, you just actually did, but did you want to talk any more about ego deaths? And
ego deaths are violent.
Yeah, I like that.
They're really mean. I don't know about you, Holly. Like, I'd love an example from you too, so I don't look like a weirdo. But like, there are times where I literally feel like that's when I'm laying in bed. That's when I have a massive ego death. That's when I literally, the power in my body disappears, and I need to put a dressing gown on and get myself to bed with a box of tissues as quick as I can, because I just have to be in it. It's
I'm not
horrible.
laughing at you, but I can just relate.
I think you've seen me like that. That's why you're laughing.
I think we've seen both of each other like that, and it's actually quite horrendous. It's like you don't even. It's like you've lost who you are. It's like you like you said, you're dying. Like you, it is an actual death. Like, and I don't know about you, but when I go through it, it can be to lots of different things. But I forget who I am through an ego death. I actually every time I'm like, that's it, I'm done. I don't know who I am. I don't know anything. That's it, I'm out. Like I'm checking out of life. It's like this massive void. It's like I just feel like this nothing. Like, and it's a scary feeling, like, because you know that it's like some program or part of you is leaving. And I have weird dreams. Like, I actually had a dream the other night. Sometimes happens in my dream state. I had a dream that I was hanging off the edge of a cliff and two of my friends were walking past and they were ignoring me. And I was like, please help me, help me. And I just like fell off the cliff and like I woke up going, oh shit, I'm dying, like another layer. Or I don't know, it happens in weird ways to me. And I feel like I'm psycho. But then it's actually, and we've had this, and I want to talk more about this if you want to, about that's how we find our authenticity, though. We have to die so many friggin' times. Like, I know you've died a lot and I've died a lot and we'll continue to die. And it's scary every time, isn't it? I feel like every time I just feel like I can't do it.
Yeah. It's interesting you said about your dreams, Holly, because like I think they're the most potent, most honest form of truth that you can ever receive from your psyche, because your dreams don't
Pretty
lie.
dark sometimes.
Yeah, your dreams don't lie, and they are dark, and that's because we have darkness in us. And Carl Jung, you know, he's all about the dream and the waking state, and you can learn a lot from what he teaches. But I think at the end of the day, you know, your spiritual self, your psyche, they all know what's going on. It's just that our minds are so conditioned to believe that is wrong, and we are meant to put on a happy face, go and do our 9-to-5 job. Don't create an environment that supports emotional healing. Because that was the other thing I was going to say before, if I may digress.
Yeah.
Is that I feel like we have all cultivated in the Western world environments that do not support emotional healing.
100% agree.
It feels like since I moved to up north, I don't have any commitments, and I have a lot of time on my hands, which is fabulous for my emotional growth, because when stuff comes up, it's allowed to come up. I don't have to say, quick, put that away, numb it somehow, because I've got to get on with life. I've got to get out to work and I've got to get, you know, I don't have that, and I'm very fortunate. But that was part of my vision, Holly, like that I wanted to manifest, was to create a life that supports my emotional healing in the most authentic way.
I love that, and I agree it's so important, and I'm very similar. I live my own life and I take time off when I need to, and that's still some days hard for me. I have days where I'm like, oh, I'm not doing enough, and I'm like, wow, that's the old pattern, you know, the old Holly of I need to keep going. And I mean, the whole 9-to-5, like you said, you don't actually have time to feel your emotions, to process things. You're on autopilot, and it's a horrible pattern to be in. And I believe that actually keeps you stuck in a really dangerous cycle. Not for everyone. I don't want to say that for everyone, but if you're a really emotional being and you have things to unpack, which I kind of believe most of us do, to be honest, we need that space to, you know, rest for a few hours when we need to process that energy. And I think it's crucial, and I think it's really amazing that you've taken that step to create that for yourself, because it's so important.
Yeah, well, it's why I wrote my book. I didn't become the sacrificial lamb of humiliation just so that I could sit and just, you know, and deny it all. I wanted to give the public an example of what transformation can look like, because transforming for me was never, ever a neat process where I could also fit in, you know, a fake life. Transforming for me was like a bomb went off in my life for a good 20 years. It was so goddamn messy, and I couldn't control myself, and no one could control me. That's why I went on antidepressants and, you know, all that stuff. And I got addicted to drugs and alcohol and sex and like just all this stuff, anything that could validate me in some way. But now I am so glad I went through all that. And someone obviously was looking out for me, because I often wonder how I survived, but I did. And I'm just so glad that I went through it all, because I understand emotions in their full entirety, because I see them in their mess. I can see how they can create a massive mess in your life. And then I can also see them after they're transformed, and how you can leverage of transformed emotions to create the life that you want.
I love it. I love that. And I love
Mm.
how you talked about control, like you couldn't control yourself. But I actually feel that in society we're almost conditioned to control ourselves, as, stay in control and put
Yeah,
yourself together and get back to work and man up, where it's actually not conducive to our growth at all.
it's not.
And yeah, and I mean, I feel that, a lot of the things you said I can relate to in my own way, with the messiness and returning to drugs and alcohol and sex and all those things to try to, not face it. And I believe that a lot of the things that, that we talk about in the medical industry or, in Western world is almost seen as, you're out of control, there's something wrong with you, whereas it's actually a purging and releasing all of the stuff that doesn't serve you to get back to who you really are. It's actually the process, like you said, of transformation, of coming to your true nature, of releasing the darkness.
Yeah.
It's actually the process of getting back to who you truly are. It doesn't need to be numbed or controlled. It needs to be freed in a safe space, of course, with tools to support you.
Yeah.
But it's actually the way through. And that's what I love about your book, showing people that.
Yes, that is so true, Holly. And the funny thing is, though, is that I think because no one has shown anyone how to set up a safe, you said it perfectly. I think the part where you said about the safe space, so that was the difference for me, is now I can create my own safe space to unpack my emotions. But back when I was younger, no one taught me how to unravel emotions.
Yeah.
So they came out in an unsafe way, which, if we're going to say safe and unsafe. But had I had an environment, and I think it starts right back when you have tantrums, Holly, as a child, as a baby. How does your parent hold space for you when you're losing your shit in the middle of a supermarket? How do they do that? Do they go, shut up, just shut up, don't everyone's looking at you, don't do that, don't embarrass me? Like, are they doing that, or are they saying, you know what, you let that out, just get it out there on the concrete floor right here with everyone watching and witnessing you. You're perfect as you are, your emotions are perfect as they are. And then I think that's how the rest of your life is dictated.
I think that's a really powerful statement, and couldn't agree more. And I guess we talked about that earlier, didn't we, about that generation unfortunately not having the capacity to understand how to deal with emotions and in survival mode, and almost people pleasing and being perfect and staying in line and just keep going. And that suppression is just overwhelming. And I believe, and I'm sure to a level you might see it and believe it too, that that's why there's so much disease and illness, because we're just suppressing so much of that emotional energy, that there's so many ridiculous high rates of illness that is not necessary if we unpack our emotions. Not saying everything is related, every illness, but a massive, massive amount of illness is due to suppressed emotions, trauma.
I 100% agree with you. I mean, I've witnessed that in my own life. I won't say with who, but I've seen that manifest before my very eyes over years. So I see that. And also you can see it in smaller ways, can't you, with your body? Like so my right adrenal gland was just absolutely killing me. I couldn't bend forward without, feeling like this pulsating pain in my back. Yeah, so that's when I went to my yoga mat, because I'm like, all right, something's coming up, but I don't know what it is. And I started doing yoga poses that were known to help adrenals. And then sure enough, as soon as I pressed really hard on a spot, I just burst out crying, because there was something there. My body was telling me, you've got a trauma or an emotion stuck in your adrenal gland. And the thing for me is that when we ignore that and ignore it and ignore it and ignore it over 20, 30, 40 years, and then we start making it our identity, oh, I've just got arthritis, or I've just got an adrenal problem, or I've just got this and I've just got that, and you create it as an identity to feel safe within, you never let it go and you never learn, those things turn into, severe diseases. And your adrenals are obviously connected to your kidneys, and there's fear there and all that sort of stuff. But the more you listen to your body, like this is, I know you feel very similar to this, the more you listen to your body, the less you have to deal with the damage 20 or 30 years down the track.
100%. And, the adrenal stuff is, I feel like it's a really big stuff, and I've had that too. And I'm sure there's more, because I feel it as well. Yeah. Because like you said, the adrenals, fear, also survival mode, flight or flight mode, I mean, a lot of people are living in fight or flight mode, and it's such a big thing, you know. And, you know, my history of, you know, healing an autoimmune disease, which I was told I wouldn't be able to, and I'm going to talk more about that at some point, knowing that a lot of that was suppressed emotions and conditioning, like a mixture of stuff. And I wasn't listening to my body. I'd numbed myself. I was completely in survival mode, not stopping to listen in. And that just accumulated and manifested as an illness. And that whole identity, I think you were one of the first people I told actually when I was diagnosed with it. And I remember that day actually, and I was in tears, and I actually almost felt like my life is over. I was like, oh my God, I don't want to live like this. And I think it set me on my journey of healing that. So I'm grateful for the experience now because it's empowered me to help others. But the thing is, I see a lot of people who, like you said, identify with it. Oh, I've just got this, I've just got that. And I really feel for that mentality and the choice they've actually made unconsciously or consciously to actually go, I've just got this. Where to me, I believe there is actually a message for you to explore and something to unpack. But it is a choice whether or not you do that. And it's not an easy choice to make. And it can be a road of deep excavating and pain and changing your life. And, you know, but it's actually, I just wish that society, you know, I guess looked at this a bit more holistically, because I think it would help a lot of people heal.
Yeah. No, I think
Controversial.
It is a controversial. I know there's a lot of sensitive things. I think that's the other thing too, Holly, is like I've always felt the things that I say are quite deep and triggering. And that's why I've always had this feeling of wanting to be silenced, like, because I'm scared of conflict. So my biggest fear is conflict. So should I happen to say what I feel is my truth, often it can be tended to with backlash. And if you're like me and you have an issue with conflict, which I'm still working through, you feel to stay quiet a lot more than you do to speak out. But I feel like we need more of the voices that you're putting on your show, on your podcast. I feel like we need more truth, more real truth, not just a truth that's convenient, the truth that's triggering. Because if it's not triggering you, I don't know how much you can grow from it. Trigger is seen as a bad thing, but for me, it's like an opportunity to grow.
Oh my goodness, you're such a breath of fresh air. I love that you just said that. And I think that that's really powerful with the triggering, because we have been conditioned to believe to almost run from triggers. And I used to do that in the past. So I get it. And I'm being triggered right now on different levels with someone in my life. And it's really helping me grow. And the amount of times I wanted to run the other direction, but the universe always sends me back. And I find that interesting in life too, because I feel that, you know, like I'm like, no, that's it, I'm out. But it's funny how I'm being sent back to face certain things. And I wonder with the rest of humanity, sorry, I shouldn't say the rest of humanity, but, you know, other people who are, you know, doing similar to me, not facing a trigger right now, the universe does tend to send you back. And I wonder sometimes how much you can actually avoid your triggers, because I do believe that there is something larger at play. Like, I actually am a big believer in divine timing and all being on our own journey, but I also believe we all make our own choice. So maybe we've all made our own choice already, which way we go. But I know that you and I, you know, for sure are definitely on that journey of truth and helping those people who want to actually get closer to the truth and to find their true power within, and to, I guess, challenge their conditioning and what they've been taught, and dig deeper and perhaps face that discomfort and see that there's not anything really much to fear in it. There's actually, but it is a fight. I know that you can get that too. Like, facing your triggers means that you have to face your shit, face where you've been hiding, face your ego. And you don't want to, because sometimes you're like, no, I'm perfect. I don't need you to tell me that. I don't care, you know. But then a week later, you're like, shit, I should have listened to that person. They were right. Got to go back now. Yeah, the triggering's painful. It's not pleasant.
No, it's not. But I think it's so interesting because, like, I say pain as, so the universe has this law, the law of balance, right? So with every action comes a reaction. With every, you know, positive, there's a negative. With it, everything has to balance out in the end. So the way I see it, right, is the deeper the roots, the taller the tree. If your pain is big and it's hurting and it's horrible and you've got to go through horrible things to excavate it, and if I might just add a disclaimer in there, if you do have some really big traumas, it might be worth reaching out to someone, you know, like Holly, who's got social work background, something like that, to hold your hand through it if that's what you need. Then, you know, and then carrying on from that, I feel like if you have big trauma and it's a massive effort to get there. Imagine the joy on the other end. Imagine the feeling of
Yeah.
liberation on the other end. And when you finally get to that place, if even for a moment, and you get to celebrate in what all the hard work you've done, and that's how the universe balances it out. So if you've got big shit to deal with, you'll have big joy to experience after.
I love that so much, and that's often what I say to my clients, not because of just saying it. It's because I believe it, and I've witnessed it within myself. And I know there's more to unpack, but I know that, same as you, the more you unpack, the more you discover, and the more magic there is. And it's a beautiful feeling when you excavate a deep trauma. But I agree with you, it can be really difficult to navigate on your own, and it's finding the right people. But I do believe, and I'm sure you have had that experience, it's almost when you put it out, then you're like, all right, I'm ready to face this. The right people present, the right opportunities come up, the right things come into reality, but it's trusting your intuition. And sometimes that can be clouded or blocked by your conditioning or your emotions or your triggers, and sometimes people enter my life, I'm like, oh, I don't know if you're the right person for me, but then, feeling the energy, usually I'm like, oh, they feel like the right person, but it's usually the trigger or something that they're stirring up in my ego or my conditioning that doesn't feel right, but the energy feels right, if that makes sense. So I think that's why understanding energy and that is really important, because sometimes something can feel right, but in your body it feels wrong, but it's almost like stirring up your darkness. Or
Because like our
trust yourself, I
intuition's
guess.
been suppressed so over time,
Yes.
and our conditioning's made us not have faith and trust in our intuition. So we've got two narratives happening, like, one is our
Yes.
intuition and then one is our conditioning. And that's why it is so important in life to know yourself, because if you don't know yourself, you don't know your conditioning, you'll never know your intuition. That's what you're
Yeah.
saying, is like just pulling, I think that's what you're saying, like just pulling apart
Yeah,
what's
you
real,
are. Yeah,
what's
that's,
not real.
yep.
And that's another thing too, is that the reason our intuition is so deeply suppressed by our older generations, I guess, is because it doesn't fit within a container of expectation. So like when the generations before us came, their narrative in life was, we work, we make money, we industrialize marriage, we make sure that we repopulate after the war. It is all about survival, like I said before. And then we've come along, the next generation, with this spark of joy and hope and intuition, and we need to flow a bit more, and we need to experience things, and we start stoking fires and questioning their industrializations. And then all of a sudden, there's backlash or anger or something like that. So we learn to shut that down as children. We're like, oh, don't feel that, because that's not right, and that takes me to a place where I get yelled at. So I'm just going to suppress it and push it down, and then I'll go on and do what people tell me to do. And then it creates people pleasing and all this stuff. So, we're in a pandemic of people pleasers at the moment. Where it's in everybody to a degree at some point, because we've all experienced what it feels like to have to live within someone else's expectations and narratives. It's hard to express
Yeah.
yourself.
Oh, 100%. And we both talked about this in the past, I guess, about the people pleasing. And I think we've had those conversations over the last few years in particular about looking at where we're giving our power away, and how much it actually kills you on the inside, how much of your energy you give out, to the external world. And it's on so many levels, isn't it? It's like, we grew up with, I guess, not naming us in particular, but, I'll name it for myself, being conditioned to be a certain way and look a certain way and say certain things to make sure that you're liked by people. And then there's a school system, and I was very like, oh, I better be perfect at school so, I do well in life. And then in my relationships, like almost compromising too much of myself for others because of being taught that that's what love was, and, being selfless. And I think now, because I've changed a lot of that in my life, and my schedule is very different to a lot of the people that I used to be around. And I still have this little voice inside me going, oh, I'm a little bit selfish because I'm not doing what they're doing, and I don't want to do that anymore, and that's not really in alignment. But when I'm on my own and I really tap into it, I'm like, well, this is actually me. This is me underneath my conditioning and what I've been taught, and I actually feel a lot more in alignment. And okay, there might not be many people who live life like me, but we are actually all different. To me, we're all on our own unique spiritual journey, our own path, and nobody is the same. Nobody should be doing exactly as anybody else unless they want to. And we're not hurting anyone by doing that. I think you and I are also on that path of, and especially with your children, showing your kids, you be who you are authentically to you, you know?
Yeah.
That's the truth of it, isn't it? And, you know, the authenticity thing is such a big thing. And I loved your recent social media poster about authenticity, because you spoke about who are we really? Like, we think we're this person because of our conditioning, but we think we know who we are. But really, do we, or are we just what someone else wanted us to be? And
yeah, that makes complete sense. And the funny thing was, Holly, is like, I didn't choose my path necessarily like to do certain things, but as you know, like just recently a modeling agency signed me as part of their agency, and to me I'm just like, what, are you ridiculous? But anyway, they might need middle-aged women for something. But so anyway, I did a photo shoot with one of them, and this lady, she was, I don't know the names of all the things yet. She was the head designer of the shoot or whatever. And she came up to me and she could see I was really struggling. I was really, really struggling, because when a camera is in front of you and everyone is staring at you, you can't hide. And so I started to die inside, basically. I was like, oh my gosh, everyone's looking at me. They can see the tension in my face. And I wear my feelings very obviously in my body. So if I'm holding tension, it'll show in my face. You know, I sometimes get like fat face because I'm holding so much tension.
Me too. Yeah. You can't hide it. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's amazing how different you look when you let it go. But anyway, so then I'm thinking, oh my God, I've got fat face and they're taking photos of me and he wants this angle and blah, blah, blah. And anyway, the lady came up to me and what she said was, it's hard being seen, isn't it? And then that made me feel a lot worse, because I was like, she can tell that I'm freaking out that I can't be seen, that I don't want to be seen. But that was another thing for me that came up, was that being seen as authentically as possible means that you have to deal with your stuff, because the thing that I was hiding in that photo shoot was my lack of confidence and my lack of self-worth. And they could see that I was hiding something. So to be authentic, you have to go back to that lack of self-worth. And where does that come from? Where is it sitting in my body? How can I shift through this? And then you can be authentic. But the little things that sit underneath, and I was trying to fake it. Like, let's be honest, I was trying to fake being confident. I had 30 people, designers, artists, makeup artists, all these people staring at me. And here I am being fake confident, and everyone could see through me. And that's what actually prompted me to write that post, because I know a lot of people can fake their authenticity in life. I think a lot of people have mastered it. But what I think it does also in the same breath is that it creates this false culture of authenticity fraud, where it's okay to be fake. And what I'm trying to do, and I think what you're trying to do, is say real authenticity comes from the bottom up. It comes from the inside out, not from the outside in.
Yeah. What a powerful experience, though. And I mean, it sounds like it would have been horrendous at the time. I would have hated that. I am sure that you look stunning, and sometimes it's just our internal stuff. I love that you talked about the self-worth and the confidence, because I really be like, you know, that's such a big thing for so many people, me included. And I think, you know, I've talked about this with you, like there's time, even starting this podcast, it's something I want to do for such a long time, just because of the beautiful people I've met and the messages I want to share and others want to share. And, you know, I got really excited. I was like, oh, this will be great. And then a few days later, I was like laying on the floor going like really like dying, going, I can't do this. I'm not good enough. I'm hopeless. No one's going to care. What the fuck am I doing? Like losing my shit like a 2-year-old. And then like, I'm not doing it. And just watching myself through that process, and it really felt like someone was stabbing me like with 20 knives. Like I'm like, nah. And that was all my self-worth and my confidence. And then I just had to go back to, what's my purpose? What am I doing this for? And who do I want to help on this journey? Because, you know, in different ways, we've had similar journeys, or some experiences for us have been similar with the self-worth, and the layers of that are really deep. You know, the layers that it's taken for me to excavate to even get to here, which is nothing. But, you know, for me, it's been such a big deal. For someone who had very low confidence, who masked it all, who worked a 9 to 5, masking, you know, all my emotions and running from triggers. And, you know, when you get these, and I think that the universe will keep sending you these triggers to help you step up. It's actually helping us, isn't it? Like that experience for you is helping you delve deeper into that part of you to step up even further into, all of your power and, self-empowerment. But it's just whether or not we keep running towards it. And it's so easy to run the other direction. It's so easy to go, oh, I'm not good enough. Or just not even wanting to acknowledge that and go, oh, that's just, and I guess we spoke about that before, just not wanting to acknowledge what the universe is trying to show us. And it's actually wanting us to rise and be our true authentic selves. And that changes in every moment, doesn't it? Like one day I'm like, yeah, I'm feeling authentic today. Then I'll have an ego death. I'm like, shit, who was that girl yesterday? But being okay with that process of, changing as we evolve, like we don't remain the same. And society needs to maybe acknowledge that a bit deeper. I think that we are always evolving and changing.
That is it. That's what authenticity is, what you just said, because you do change in every moment. And I remember when I was about 19 and I wrote a journal entry, which I was reading through the other day. And I wrote about how my friends don't like it when I change.
Yes, I can relate.
Yeah. And then I remember creating like friendship circles and all these people that I had to literally leave their lives so that I could evolve, because I'd created a scenario where I couldn't change and evolve, because that's what's so normal in society, is this lack of acceptance of evolution. We are like, I love what you said, like how you're like, we're constantly evolving. We are constantly changing. It's the only thing guaranteed in life is that you're going to change. But, we're taught so much to hold on to that identity. Hold on. Don't let go. Hold on with all your might, or you'll die, or, people won't like you, or you'll lose all your friends, and that's why the universe favors the brave. When you decide to make that choice to fucking do it anyway and to evolve anyway, the universe will reward you with everything you ever wanted. And that's what I see this whole process is like evolution is the only reason we're here.
Wow, that was really powerful, and I couldn't agree more. And did I take a big breath there? Because it's just that clinging to the old ways, and I'm actually doing that right now. That's something I'm going through personally. I'm at a big crossroads, and I'm watching my fear come up. If I go down this new path, I'm going to lose everyone. No one's going to like me. I'm going to have no friends. I'm going to be all alone. And then I think, hold on a second, Holly, you've changed a lot. And every time you change, the people who leave, and the people who are meant to come, who are new, come. And, even the last, I don't know how it's been, 8 months living back in Melbourne, which I wasn't really the plan, but I was drawn back here for reasons I understand now. And I've met people who I feel like I've known for 100 years that I've only known them for 8 months. So the universe really showed me you are supported in every new direction you take, and you just nailed it. And the people who've left my life, maybe they'll come back because we're all on our own journey. But it does actually kill me when people I've known for a long time leave. I guess I do have, I don't know if I should call it attachment issues or that old narrative of not wanting to let go, and all that voice in my head going, oh, you're selfish. You can't just leave people behind. I'm like, am I leaving people behind, or am I actually following my soul path, and are they following theirs? And we're just being conditioned, like you said, to stay with what we know. But I think, we understand that this is about a soul journey, evolving our soul and trusting the process, and knowing that whoever's meant to be in our lives will be there, or they might reappear or they might not.
So true. It's like
it's scary though, right?
Yeah, it's so scary. But then also too, that trusting, if someone comes into your life, they're in it for whatever your soul contract was meant to be in it for, and then they go. They come back, that means they've done their work, you've done yours, you guys are vibrating at the same frequency again, so then you're another match. I just think we're just like our bodies are like instruments. Whatever we vibrate and whatever we emanate to the universe, that's what we attract. And for me, it's like, well, I might not be vibrating at the same frequency as that person anymore. So there's that detachment that's got to happen. And I think it's healthy, and I don't think it's over attaching, but I think it's healthy to grieve when you lose and detach from somebody. You have to grieve. We're still human. We need to grieve change. And I think that's the other thing. No one knows how to grieve. We've not been taught to grieve. When people die, like there's a whole biology behind grief. And if you look at grief, you don't actually start grieving for like 6 months after you lose something, like a big grief. Like if you've lost someone and they've died and you're very close to them, your body will release a hormone to help. It's like a happy hormone, but it just eases the feeling of that loss. And this is how smart our
Mm.
bodies are. And then after 6 months, that
Yeah.
hormone disappears and you're left with the reality of what you've lost. But by that stage, everyone's moved on. So you don't have that support anymore around you of people like saying, are you okay? And I'm here for you. You've got to do it on your own. And so we don't see grief like
Mm.
that. We just kind of feel like it's this,
Mm.
oh, okay, well, it's been 3 months now and you should really get over it. And then we just move on. And I think that our relationship with grief has created a dysfunction with how we let go of things in our life. So, like, say we let go
Yeah.
of, a friend or something small, like we move home, away from home. We don't grieve it properly because we're afraid of grief. So, yeah, we need to relearn these relationships with all these big feelings. Like, we need to relearn our relationship with death. We need to relearn our relationship with grief, with evolution, with discomfort, all of that.
Wow, that's so true with the grieving process, isn't it? Because, and with a lot of emotions, I mean, the healing is, there's so many layers, and I think you and I get that. And even actually for me, like last week I realized I'm still grieving a part of something that happened to me 20 years ago,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
or someone that was out of my life for 20 years. And I'm like, oh, I'm over it. But then another layer will come up, and it's normal for that to happen. It's okay. It's just the layers that we hold on to. And I think that, I don't know what you think, but I believe that they come up when they're ready to. Like, we can't really force the process. It's like,
No,
I think our
that's
bodies, like you said, are so intelligent. It's like, okay, she's ready for this now. It's time for this. It's like our body does try to be gentle with us to a level. It's just what we resist, I think, and what we've been taught in how we process our emotions, because a lot of that grief stuff you spoke about, it's not really accepted. I've heard so many stories of professionals, thinking that people just need a tablet because they're depressed because of when it's really grief. And it's like, well, that's okay. So I couldn't agree more with that.
Yeah, it's interesting too, just on one last note, about counselors and things like that, psychologists. I completely understand the theories behind it, but I had an amazing psychologist for 7 years. And the only difference
Yes.
between her and the other psychologists that I saw was the ones that I saw to begin with when I had depression, they would look at me like like I was functioning cognitively. They didn't look into my body. And
Yep.
I know that sounds so weird, but I really believe that your emotions are somatic. I believe they sit in your body and you can't just clear them from a head. It doesn't make
No.
any sense. Yeah, so this lady that I saw, which unfortunately she's passed away, but her whole entire ethos and her theories, she brought this emotion-focused therapy to Australia, and she's like revolutionized psychotherapy, because what she did was every time I had an emotion, the first thing she would do, if she saw me getting emotional in our therapy session, she'd say, where in your body do you feel that? Where do you feel that? And how does it look? And it became like this tangible kind of experience where I could get into my body, feel and think. And then all of a sudden, once I started making an image out of this feeling in my body, if I felt it in my heart, if I felt it in my knees, wherever I felt it, the memories of that would come up, and then like cry or have a, big release or a purge. And that was that processed. Like, that was an unprocessed emotion sitting in my body that I'd had since I was 6 years old. And that's, I
So
think,
powerful.
so powerful. So going back to that psychology thing, I think what happens is there's two types of psychology that you can, if you go to see a psychologist, you can go there and you can get a few pills, and then you can sit there and you can talk it out of your mouth, or you can go and have a whole somatic experience where you move down into your body, and that's where you clear the trauma from, which I really, from my experience of 7 years of doing that straight, that's exactly where my wounds sit. My wounds don't sit up in my head.
100% agree. And I'm so glad you said that, because I believe, and there's a lot of research, that our body is our subconscious mind. So how can we actually excavate it if we don't go into the body? And I actually do a similar thing with my clients, and that's what I've learned over the years about taking the clients into their body. And it's amazing what memories come up. It actually blows my mind. I sit there, I'm like, wow, they actually, like, I doubt the process. That's my little, entity.
Yep.
And, they're like, oh my God, I just remember this image and this came up. I'm like, fuck, this is so powerful. Our body actually remembers what the mind forgets. And it's actually, I think it's where we really clear energetically, what we're holding on to, and it's how we really heal. And you're living proof of that. And I wouldn't have cleared a lot of my stuff if I hadn't met people who taught me how to do that. And now that's what I love, what I do. But Yeah, I'd love to see more of it personally, not pushing any agendas, but I'd love to see more people do, what you've been through and I've been through to actually, and I think, I don't know about you, but meditation and yoga were probably the first things that actually helped me on that journey of reconnecting back to my body because I was really disconnected. And I believe that I'm not making excuses and blaming. I've got to be careful with my words, but I feel like I was conditioned to be in the mind, learn this, do this, go to university, don't think too much, keep going. I disconnected from my body and I knew there was stuff there. I knew it was painful, but nobody else seemed to be worried either. So let's just keep rushing. Maybe I use that as a bit of a coping strategy, or everyone else is doing that so I don't have to look. Maybe that was like mirrored to me because that's how I felt. But I guess you get to the stage where you get ill, your life falls apart, your foundations crumble, you don't know who you are, so your life is trying to tell you that you need to actually go deeper. And until you do that, I don't really believe that you function that well. And that's what breaks my heart, that people can actually change that if they want to delve deep.
Yeah, that big, dirty, scary word, deep.
Deep. Deep and dark and dirty, but
I'm going to make a t-shirt and on it's going to say go deep.
Go deep. I'll buy one.
I'll just sell one.
Just, I'll be here wearing it, promoting it. Come on, people.
Go deep.
I love it, Claire. I love going deep. It's I don't know. I'm just so passionate about this, and I know you are too. What would you like to share about your book? Because I think it's a really powerful book and could really help a lot of people start to look deeper within themselves with your support and guidance.
Well, I think it's important to say I don't claim to be anything of a medical practitioner or, psychologist or whatever, but personally, I never found they helped me anyway. So the reason I wrote the book was not to change people's lives in the way that they feel forced to, but it was definitely to favor more of the idea of going deeper into our stuff, and also to try to create a new culture that accepts messy lives or transforming in a messy way. And I think I had this idea in my head before I wrote the book was, I think I'm going to be that sacrificial lamb, because if I don't show others how horrible my life was in so many ways, how can I expect to change this culture of fake positivity? How do I change that culture? Well, I always hear that saying, be the change you want to see in the world. So that's where I started. And I know probably a lot of people would say that, but there's so many unique things that we could all bring to the world, and there's so many things that can stop us. But something inside of me just wouldn't stop. I just had to get this book out there. And Holly, there isn't a day that goes by that I don't freak the hell out. Like, what have I done? And if the wrong person gets their hands on that book and they're going to read it and they're going to see all of my deepest, darkest, horrible things, and they're going to judge me. But then I'm like, well, like you said before, you go back to your why. Like, why are you doing it? Why did you write the truth about your life? And I've got to ask myself that question constantly, and I've got to go and reconnect with it in that space that I want to change the way that we see emotions. I want to change it because I need my daughters to grow up knowing that emotions are healthy, even big ones. Because I think that the reason my life was so messy was because I didn't allow emotions to be normal in my life. So I tried to suppress them and suppress them and suppress them. And then they just explode in this chaos. And and that's what it was. But the funny thing was, Holly, like in my book, I talk about all sorts of, horrible things. But one of the things that I talk about is all the things that I did that felt so liberating for me were wrong by society. So when I was doing the art nude modeling, it was one of the most empowering things for me. I found so much truth. I learned that my body is an instrument. It's an instrument in life that I can use to get what I need, not in a dysfunctional way. So by clearing my body and the container of trauma that it was, I can use my body. I can clear my pathway to my intuition. I can create the most beautiful life out of that. But I learned that from being naked in front of all these people, predominantly men. Everyone would look at me and go, oh, what a, this, that, and the other. But the truth is that what looked so wrong by society was so right for me. And I hold those memories so dear to myself. That for me, that's everything, and that's what it taught me. And then I knew in those moments, even when I was having those moments, I need to put this in a book one day. It doesn't matter what society deems it. If it feels right for you, it is right for you, and that's one of the hardest things, is that my life most certainly was not orthodox, and it did not fit in the confines of what society says your life must look like to be a successful person. My life was chaotic, and I found it hard to express myself. I didn't know how to express my emotions properly, and and then I didn't learn about sexual development and things like that in a healthy way. So then that all came out later in life. So yeah, I wanted to put that in there because there's a lot of dysfunction in our society, so much dysfunction,
Yeah.
and we're just not willing to see it. And we've actually normalized. This is what gets me so riled up, is like, we actually normalize working our asses off to the point of exhaustion, going out on a Friday night, getting absolutely shit-faced, sleeping with however many men. This was my life. This is what I did. Sleep around, get out all this tension, drink yourself to an oblivion, have an immense amount of shame on Sunday, and then just go back and do it again on Monday. We call other things dysfunctional, but we normalize that.
Isn't it interesting how we've been conditioned? And I actually was reflecting on that the other day, because I don't go out and drink anymore, but I did the same as you. Worked the 9 to 5, going on a Friday, went on a Friday, but always felt empty every Sunday, felt like shit. And it made me just look at my life now, and I'm still delving deeper, but realizing, oh my goodness, I'm actually allowed to have a peaceful life all the time. I don't have to stress. And obviously life throws things at you to test you and challenge you and help you evolve and grow, but we don't have to work the 9 to 5, and we can actually have a peaceful life, and we don't have to turn to alcohol to numb ourselves because we're stressed. We should be facing that stress. And it's just that robotic way of living that we've numbed ourselves from the truth of who we are as free beings who are entitled to live life on our own terms. We're not hurting anyone by doing that. So many things you just said are so powerful. I just wrote a whole page of notes of what just came out of your mouth. I love that you just talked about following your own truth and what's right for you and trusting your journey, not what society is doing. And I think a lot of people, from my perspective and my journey, it can be hard to detach from that. Oh my God, but all my friends are doing that. And it probably goes back to feeling alone and feeling like, you're an outcast. But it makes me delve a bit deeper with this thing, going, wow, why have we been conditioned to live this way? They're the questions that make me a bit sad. Why are so many of us actually thinking this is the way to live? And, that survival mentality we're still in, that money, you've got to have this, thinking of the future, I've got to work so hard to be successful, when really isn't success. Well, everyone's different with success. I shouldn't say that, but to me, success now is about internal peace and happiness and health and love and joy. And that can be hard to navigate towards when you've been taught the exact opposite. It's not easy. And it sounds silly because it sounds so simple when you say it out loud. Anyway, sorry, I just wanted to say that. And I loved how you talked about your why and your book and your powerful messages, because you've lived it. You've been through it, and it's like you have been the guinea pig in your own journey of like, I used to do this and I did that, and society didn't like it, but I learned from it, and this is what came out of it. And you helping others navigate through their path of messy transformation and the emotional chaos and how it is when you suppress yourself. And it's not pleasant, but it's the way through, and it's amazing. It's really, really amazing.
I just have one last thing to say on that, that I think in 2016 I wrote this blog, which I actually can't find anymore. It's a bit of a pain, but it was about the self-expression repression and how we're just so repressed in our expression in life. And, I reckon that's a really big, one of the really big reasons that people get stuck in their emotions, because if you can't express in a happy way, you certainly can't express in a emotional way either. So for me, I was like, I didn't know, like I had big feelings. I didn't know how to express them. And then my life got messy. Yeah. But the funny thing is that my life got messy, not by accident. It was for a reason. And I needed to take ownership over that. I had so much shame, which crippled me. But I knew that also by writing that book, I was healing myself, and I was healing my relationship with my past self, all my past selves. And and then I was able to then integrate that shame. Like the shame disappeared, I could integrate those personalities and those fragments of myself back into who I am as a whole woman. And now I get to go forward like that. But I feel like I'm constantly reclaiming parts of myself from the past. And maybe I'll write another book about that. Who knows?
Sure you will. I'm sure you'll write some amazing books. Claire is an amazing writer, if I do say so myself.
Oh.
You'll really love her book. And we'll put details below the podcast of, your website and whatever else, any links that, to your book and everything, because you have some really profound messages to share with people. And yeah, I love that you just said too about the shame. And I think a lot of us feel that when we're on this journey of healing and looking at our old patterns and our traumas and how our life got messy and having to take responsibility and accountability, because it's not easy. And shame is a really low vibe emotion. It's actually horrible to feel.
It
And
is, yeah.
transcending that can take a bit of work. It's not fun, but it's, got to go through it to get to the other side. And yeah, like you said, it is a constant thing. And I think before this podcast, we spoke about the layers. We don't know how many layers there are. That's the truth of it. And that's okay. Like, I think, being okay, isn't it, with what you're going through is perfect for your journey, and there's nothing wrong with you for feeling what you're feeling in any moment.
Yeah, good point.
Well, Claire, I've really, really enjoyed chatting to you today. I love talking to people who go deep like this, and the messages you've shared have been really profound, and no doubt people will really benefit from what you have to say. And thank you so much.
Thanks, Holly. That was an amazing co-creation. I love those chats.